Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you all to week 23 of the TheHORRORman's SlashBack Saturday Challenge. This week's slasher movie theme is unique setting slashers, and I will be giving my review for Blood Relic. Okay, so getting into the plot for this one. In 1983, not long after finding an ancient talisman, Navy pilot Hank Campbell goes on a killing spree at his air station. Before being captured, he hides it in the hangar. It's now 22 years later, and the hangar is being prepared to open as an air and space museum by its young staff. But Hank has just been released from the Psychiatric Institute, and he knows where his first stop will be. A voodoo curse is set to be unleashed again. Okay, so getting into my thoughts for this one. With this week's SlashBack Challenge theme of unique setting slashers, I chose to watch and review Blood Relic because the main set location for this slasher takes place at an air, sea, and space museum, and in my opinion, that's a pretty unique location for a slasher film. Overall, I thought Blood Relic was a fun and entertaining slasher movie that has a pretty standard slasher movie setup. So basically what we have here is the Blood Relic, which is a talisman, and whoever is wearing this necklace or comes in close contact with it starts to show violent and aggressive behavior. And considering this Blood Relic affects everyone equally, I thought it was a good way to set up misdirection and suspense and keep you guessing on who the killer actually is. There is a flashback sequence in this movie that takes place during a war. The Navy pilot is roaming through the jungle and finds a severed head, which is basically a skull on a pole. But this is where he discovers the voodoo-cursed Blood Relic. The movie opens up in 1983 with the Navy pilot wearing the voodoo-cursed Blood Relic. He goes on a killing spree, but before he is captured, he hides this relic, and the story will progress 22 years forward when he is being released on good behavior, and he plans to head back to the naval base, which currently is being turned into a air, sea, and space museum. And I have to say that I absolutely love the set location for this movie. Not only was it neat to see the planes on display in the museum, but also to see the spare parts and the machinery in the hangar area. So in my opinion, this was a unique setting for a slasher film, and it worked for the storyline as well. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the cast of characters we have in Blood Relic. So the main character of this movie storyline would be Terry, and upon arriving at her first day at the Air, Sea, and Space Museum, she overhears the two owners, who are brothers, arguing over the finances and the future of the museum. Terry has hired in as a tour guide and soon discovers that she will have to pitch in and help with the cleaning and other odd and end jobs to help the museum get ready for its opening day. The side characters in this movie would be the museum staff. Terry immediately takes interest in Dan, and Dan is the type person who is really big into history and he really enjoys his job. Another notable staff member is Corey, played by Debbie Rochon, that a lot of horror movie fans will recognize. We also have Rachel, who likes to take things from the museum and sell them on eBay. And rounding out the staff members would be two couples who are pretty much here just to add to the movie's overall body count, which in turn adds to the movie's overall entertainment value. Another notable character would be one of the brothers, who is played by Billy Drago, who a lot of horror movie fans will recognize. He gives a pretty intense and over-the-top performance. Overall, I have to say that I enjoyed the characters in this movie. Oddly enough, with saying that, I do feel like the writing and the dialogue worsened as the movie would move along, especially when things begin to pick up. But for the most part, I thought the acting was okay. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the most important part of a slasher movie, that is the killer and the kills. And I absolutely love the look of the killer in this movie, and I should definitely mention that this movie, even though it does have some super cool cover art, do not go into this movie expecting the killer to look like this on the cover, because it is pretty misleading. This cover implies to me that we have a voodoo-looking killer, and that's just not the case. We do, in fact, have a killer who is being driven to madness by this cursed voodoo relic, but instead is wearing a pilot's uniform. which is basically a green jumpsuit with a big white airplane pilot's helmet that has the long hose that dangles down from the nose and mouthpiece. Overall, I thought it was a super cool look, and I thought it tied in perfectly to the movie's set location. I also really liked the setup of the killer in this movie. I had already mentioned that the blood relic affects everyone in the same way, so anyone who wears it or comes in close contact with it begins to behave and act violently. And that leaves us with the possibility that anyone could be the killer. As far as the kills go in this movie, it has a pretty high body count, and I thought the kills were a lot of fun to watch. There's a decent amount of blood, but overall it's not all that gory. But we do get a pretty good variety of kills. We get a knife to the forehead, along with some other stabbings, a throat getting cut, a couple of people dying by a fire axe, and then the killer begins a game of cat and mouse and starts to set traps, ultimately turning some of the remaining survivors against each other. Overall, I enjoyed watching Blood Relic, and I definitely thought it had a unique setting that was perfectly able to tie in the killer. So I'm going to give Blood Relic a 6.5 out of 10, so please like, subscribe, comment below, let me know if you have seen Blood Relic, or just let me know what you think about my review, and I would like to thank you all for watching.